The 2022 season reminded everyone that no team is safe from having a catastrophic season in a blink of an eye. Mercedes, arguably one of the best teams on the grid this past decade, experienced a disappointing season, to say the least. But all of that is in the past, and as we are now only a few weeks away from preseason testing, how is the Brackley-based team feeling about their chances this season? Well, why don't you stick around if you're interested in finding out? Mercedes had the worst season in 2022 that resulted in seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton not winning even a single race all season long. This is the first time in his 15 years of competing in F1. And because of that, most fans and pundits have started the discussion on whether or not Lewis still has it in him to compete with the younger and hungrier stars of the sport. Hamilton isn't young by any stretch of the imagination. As I mentioned, the British star driver has been racing in Formula One for 15 years now and has recently turned 38 this past January. So questions about his physical and mental capability are starting to surface. Speaking of surface, let me put up a subscription animation to remind those of you who still haven't subscribed to the channel. Now, back to talking about Lewis. As any fierce competitor would, Hamilton would recently take to his Instagram account and post a throwback photo of himself during his days karting. And with that, Hamilton would admit that he is as hungry, if not hungrier, than when he was starting out in the sport. I remember how excited I was when I saw my first go-kart wrapped up in my living room, he wrote. I saw it before I was supposed to and had to act all surprised when my parents called me in to open it. Even walked in with my back turned to it and acted like it wasn't there. From the very first time I got to drive it, I felt at one. I knew I was meant to do this. I knew I was powerful. More powerful and hungrier than other kids. That hunger was there from day one, and it's still here today. I was hungry then, so much hungrier now. Mercedes will be unveiling their W14 this February 15th, but this past week has been a busy one for all their drivers. Lewis in particular has been on the track testing Pirelli's new tire compounds heading into the new season. The British driving star was in France at Paul Ricard last week and is reported to be in Jerez this week alongside his teammate George Russell and Aston Martin's drivers Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Many fans, specifically Mercedes fans, are eager to see what the team comes out with compared to last year. To refresh everyone's minds, it was clear from the get-go that Mercedes didn't have the machinery to compete with both Red Bull and Ferrari. But, much to their credit, they were able to claw themselves back up throughout the season, and by the end of it, seemed like they finally found their bearings with the new regulations. And this is exactly why Red Bull's Max Verstappen believes that if Mercedes continues on their upward trajectory, the Brackley-based team will be a formidable threat to him and Red Bull repeating as champions. It is difficult to say where Mercedes will be, as at the end of last year, sometimes it looked like they had it together, sometimes not, the Dutchman told media, including RacingNews365.com, at the livery launch of the RB19. From my side, it is difficult to say because I'm not part of the team, if they've fully understood everything. But I guess we will find out this year if they did fully understand everything they wanted to improve on the car. For sure, they will be a main rival, but I also think Ferrari will be strong. But how strong is difficult to say, but Mercedes have shown over the last few years that they've always been really strong, and they have a good group of people as well. But I trust my people in Milton Keynes, that they have built a very strong car, together with our engine as well, and I hope we have a strong package against them. And as always, this subtle back and forth has extended to their team bosses, as Christian Horner has called out Toto Wolff yet again for a rule change Toto has demanded from the FIA. Quick flashback to when Lewis was limping out of the W13 after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix that prompted Toto and a few drivers to demand the FIA to make adjustments to the new regulations. The back and forth ended with Toto yet again getting his way, with the FIA raising the floor edges by at least 15 millimeters this coming 2023 season. And to add on to that, the FIA would also require everybody to raise the diffuser throat height and have the car edges stiffened. These adjustments would prompt Horner to say to the media, "It's a little bit strange, because obviously there was a big push to get all of this changed, and the changes came through around Spa last year. But by the end of the year, there was very little porpoising. My argument at the time was, will it not just get sorted out, which it did. So we've gone through quite a lot of expense for all the teams in a big regulation change that probably wasn't needed." This was the start of the lengthy row between the two figures, something most F1 fans have grown accustomed to these past few years, and rightfully so. Both figures at the top of their game and have the weight bearing down on their shoulders. Something George Russell also realized when he joined Mercedes. In his recent interview with Men's Health magazine, the 24-year-old Mercedes driver would open up about the time he was at his lowest, which prompted him to speak to a professional. "I haven't always been into my mental health. I only started getting into it about 1.5 years ago, when I started to speak with a psychologist, mainly for my on-track personal performance," Russell revealed. "It was only through those conversations that I felt like this is giving me more than just the on-track benefits. I'm coming away from these sessions feeling better about myself, feeling like there had been a weight lifted off my shoulders. Sometimes I went into these sessions with not a lot to talk about, thinking it would only last 5 or 10 minutes, and I was there well over an hour, and since then it has been something I've felt strongly about. The moment when I thought I need to seek some professional help, I had a really difficult race. I had a crash, and it was just a very low point in my career," Russell revealed. "I thought I could just pick myself up from that moment, and I was picking myself up, but we decided to speak with a professional, and I was so grateful that I was advised to do that, because I came away from that conversation and that meeting with him feeling so much better about myself, and put those negatives to the side, lifted myself up, and I was ready to attack the rest of the day and the rest of the week." Russell would then give advice to people who think they are suffering with their mental health and say, "The one bit of advice I would give to someone who is struggling with their mental health would be not to be ashamed about talking to somebody. Whether that is a friend or a colleague or a member of your family or reaching out to a professional. We all have our moments where we are feeling a bit down, a little bit low, but even when we're not, I think talking to somebody to almost have this mental maintenance, just to keep ticking over, to keep in that positive place, is so important." So, will we see shades of 2021 this upcoming season? Well, let me know then in the comments section, and consider hitting the subscribe button before you head out.